Working Cows Podcast, episode 247.
Welcome to the podcast that gives producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm-challenging practices. Practices that have increased the effectiveness of their operation and the joy that their families have received from this lifestyle.
Howdy, everybody. It's Clay Conry, host of the Working Cows Podcast, powered by the Global Ag Network. Very excited to be joined today by Jaime Elizondo. Jim has had his fingers in a lot of pies over the years. Dairy ranching in Mexico, in the tropics, consulting in beef operations around the world, mentored by Johann Zietzman. Had lots of broad experience and really excited to talk to him. Very much appreciate his perspective and looking forward to talking to him kind of about the four pillars as he sees it of a profitable ranching operation. Did want to let you know I'm going to start trying to do this at the opening of every episode. Really enjoyed my discussion last week with Damon Prince. So if you missed that, episode 246, workingcows.net/246, you can go check that out. Also want to let you know about a master class that Jim has coming up in the middle of July. A couple of days, one in the evening, one in the around noon. Give you an opportunity to catch it kind of no matter where you're at in the world. I would encourage you to catch both if you can, because I think there will be different parts of the world on both webinars. You can check that out at rwranching.com/masterclass. Links to that will also be in the show notes page for today, workingcows.net/247. So without further ado, really excited to be joined today by Jaime Elizondo. Jim, thanks for joining me today on the Working Cows Podcast.
Hey, hello. I am very happy to be here today with you.
You know, I've definitely had you on a list of guests that I wanted to have on for a long time. I always say I'm like a cat with a laser pointer when it comes to this podcast. I see one guest and I think, oh yeah, I got to get that guy on, and then I get distracted and have somebody else on. But definitely really excited to talk to you today about kind of real wealth ranching, I think, as you have termed it, as kind of the holistic approach or the approach that takes into account four pillars, basically. And I guess if you want to share a little bit about just a high level overview of that, and then we can kind of dive into those four pillars as well as kind of your background and how you got started doing the consulting work and things that you're doing now.
Sure. My father and my grandfather were cattlemen, and my aunt and my uncles were cattlemen. So I had heard about cattle and grasses and management since I was little. And every weekend, there will be a family reunion, and the topic, of course, was cattle and ranching. So it's in my veins, and I've been doing it all my life, and I love it. And I know that we can improve the land with the way we graze and select our cattle. So I coined the name Real Wealth Ranching to try to describe that we not only need money to be happy and to live fully, we also need health and we need time to enjoy it, especially with our family. I have been married since 1987, and now our granddaughter was born, and a new granddaughter is on the way for August. So I am very much into improving the environment for the future generations. And we have been achieving the greatest success by applying low-cost biological methods. I do not use any chemicals at all.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, I'm all for all of that as well. I've got 4 young kids between the ages of 13 and 7. And so we're just getting started here, but very much it's got to take into account everything, you know, and it has to be fun. And if you're not making any money, it's not fun.
Yes, that's totally true. We need to make money. That's one of our priorities.
Right. Yep. So we talked a little bit about the big picture view of it, and it starts, or at least the first principle that I have heard you speak of is a total grazing program. Is that where you always start? Is that the first place to start, or are some of the other pillars ones that you would focus on first in different situations, or is it always the total grazing program first?
Well, you see, it depends on environment. And the most important environment is the one between the 2 years of the student. So if the student wants to start and improve his or her land the fastest by applying low-cost biological methods, then I will start with total grazing. But if the student doesn't want to do that, then I will start with the optimum calving season, because it is very important to better use your annual forage flow. Then adapted genetics and selection is a huge part of it. I have had students that achieve regeneration of their land just by doing the adapted genetics and selection and giving very long rest periods in low rainfall environments up to 7,000 feet up with 18 inches of rain per year on average, some years 6, some years 9, but because their animals had such genetics that they can take that and still be productive, he has improved his land to where his artesian wells are flowing again and his intermittent streams are running year-round.
And where was that?
That's in Chihuahua Mountains, and his name is Eliseo Navarro.
Wow. Yeah, that's not easy country. Chihuahua
no.
Mountains are a difficult country.
And he just took a desert ranch over with 6 to 8 inches rainfall per year. And by taking his own genetics there, he is achieving success in improving the land very fast.
Yeah, so we're going to get to adapted genetics and those things as well. So I don't want to move off of total grazing too far.
Okay.
So let's define the term total grazing. What do you mean by that?
Oh, yeah. I like to call it the Total Grazing Program because it's not only an isolated event that we graze everything down to the ground, because people tend to think of that only. And they think of denuded land with no litter, which really doesn't happen under Total Grazing Program. So we graze with a high harvest efficiency, as high as possible. And we need to think what that does to the soil, because we need a high density to have the cows consume it all before they soil and foul with their manure and urine the grass. So that means that it needs to be fast, and that means that it needs to be done with a program. We cannot just do graze it to the ground and call that total grazing. That's not total grazing. In total grazing, our priority number one is to avoid overgrazing. Overgrazing happens when you regraze a plant before it has fully recovered. It has nothing to do with how low you take it. Whenever you try to take it less than optimum or maximum harvest efficiency, you will get selective grazing. When people say, oh, I want to leave 6 to 8 inches of residual, what they are really doing in practice is doing selective grazing, because livestock, cattle, sheep, and goats, graze selectively. They will always go for the best parts of the plant and the best species in your sward or range. So that means you get less cow days under a selective grazing than under a total grazing. When you get less cow days harvested per grazing per acre, you need to come back sooner. And whenever you get a hard time like a drought or a cold front, a freeze, and you have a very high to very high carrying stocking rate, which, by the way, determines profitability and land improvement, if you avoid overgrazing. Then when you do selective grazing, you come back and you start to kill the best species, and you get two things at the same time. You get overgrazing in some plants and species, the best ones, of course, and you get over resting or oxidation in dry environments of the less desirable plants, and they start to take over. That's why we get so much brush encroachment in the West. Okay.
Mm.
In the East, what we get is a composition shift of species. We start to make a monoculture. I've been to ranches that have been doing selective rotational grazing in Chihuahua, Mexico, because that's where holistic management started in America,
right,
in Mexico. Okay. So after 40 years of that, now they have a monoculture and a pedestal by the erosion of the grasses. So that's not how nature functioned before men came into the picture. So I'm trying to follow nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So before men came into the picture, there were huge animals like mammoths, mastodons, and others that will maintain a savanna open area. Like in Africa, if you look at the Okavango Delta, it's still functioning that way. There are elephants, rhino, hippo, zebra. All of them are hindgut fermenters. Those four animals I said, and the mammoth and the wild horse all were hindgut fermenters. If you have observed horses and donkeys, they are hindgut fermenters. So they can consume a much higher fiber, lower protein diet and maintain their good body condition. That's why you see fat horses and donkeys in Nevada, where they are a problem because they are desertifying the land because there are no predators and they don't have to, or they cannot migrate. Okay? So in the Okavango Delta, they can migrate. And in previous times in America, all those large herds of hindgut fermenters could migrate along with the ruminants. Ruminants require a lower fiber, higher protein diet, and between them all in huge numbers and aided by the predator effect that held them together, they could achieve a total graze, which is how nature evolved or was designed. That's what nature always wants to get to. High complexity and the highest production possible per unit of land. That's how God designed it, and he made us stewards of the land. So we are called to be stewards of the land, and the best I could find is to go back in time and look at fossil records and at fossil bones and find out how it really happened. So selective grazing, yes, that's how ruminants worked, yes. But there were a huge number of hindgut fermenters, which we don't have now. So we need to do the same job they all did together, all those species, a myriad of species, with only one or two livestock domesticated species, cows, sheep, and goats. So by selecting the genetics and with our selection guidelines, we can make our cows do almost the same as all those animals. Not the same because we don't have elephants anymore to take trees down and open up a savanna. So that's why we have caterpillar for. And that's where we have to use our creativity and our mind and be open to try to emulate nature before men came into the picture. Okay?
Yeah, very good. No, I love it. How much, or you have emphasized a couple of times the word program, a total grazing program,
Yes.
and I'm assuming that has a lot to do with rest period or recovery period. Is a lot of what you're emphasizing there. But what else, or is that a big majority of it? And then what else are you emphasizing when you say program as far as total grazing program?
Thank you for your question. That's very important. When we do a total graze under the Total Grazing Program, we need to be thinking always about what's happening to the soil, to the animals, and to our forage production, because we want to maximize productivity at low cost. So you know that saliva in the ruminants helps the grass regrow faster, right? Up to 80% faster, because there are vitamins and hormones in the saliva and in the nose of the cow, the sheep, and the goat that helps the grass and legumes regrow faster, up to 80% faster. Then the hooves of the animals will break the hard crust and help the gas interchange. When you have a high stocking rate, or stock density, a high stock density, you see, my first language is Spanish, so I had to translate in my brain. Sorry.
You're good.
So we achieved that under the Total Grazing Program. So we do total grazing most of the year, and we do not do total grazing when the animals are giving birth, because we want them to create their bond between the dam or mother and the baby. That's very important. We still have predators. We have buzzards. We have coyotes. We have half wolves or total wolves. We have cats, bobcats, cougar, everything. So they can kill the babies if they are left behind, and we are rotating them when they are calving. That's why we have an optimum calving season or birthing season. Okay, now let's go back to the program. Usually in the green season, depending on environment, we graze half the property. Why? Because if you try to graze it all under a total graze, you will not be able to come back and maintain high quality in the green season when we want our animals fat. So we stockpile the rest. And that way, we have a stockpile in area for wildlife to avoid hay feeding in the summer slump and in the winter. We alternate these two areas every year to improve the whole property, because the place where most humus is formed, and humus is the stable fraction of organic matter that lasts over 100 years. It cannot be further degraded by microorganisms. That's what we're after, humus, not organic matter. Humus in compost, for example, if you get 3% humus, that's a very good compost. Okay, so let's define humus. It's a substance that puts, when you handle the soil with your hands, turns your hands brown. It's what gives the dark brown color to the soil and the nice earthy smell. Okay? And it's a storehouse of nutrients, minerals, and a buffer for pH and for poisons that we have poured in the land, like glyphosate and insecticides. So I'm all for no poisons. Okay, now let's go back to the program again. Sorry. When we finish the green area, we go to the stockpile area, and we continue to do total grazing, high harvest efficiency grazing. And that allows us to maintain a much higher number of productive animals in our land throughout the year, because what determines the amount of productive animals you can maintain is the difficult seasons, the summer slump and the winter. So we want to do that at the least cost possible, and under the Total Grazing Program, we achieved that. We usually increase to double the stocking rate compared to rotational selective grazing the first year, and in 3 or 4 years, we have tripled it, even in large ranches in the mountains of Chihuahua with 27,000 acres. We went from 1,100 cows to 3,000 and some cows in 4 years.
Wow.
And they were doing rotational selective grazing for 12 years, and they had already achieved double what conventional neighbors were getting. So that means we were 4 to 6 times higher than conventional.
So how much biomass is removed in a total grazing event?
Yes.
That's
from 80 to 90% of what is available. But that allows you not to come back sooner, even in a short drought situation like a summer slump, and avoid overgrazing, which with selective grazing, I have a term. Under a selective grazing program, at the high stocking rates required today to make a profit, you will always incur in overgrazing. Always.
Yeah.
That's why they always talk about lowering stocking rate, destocking. you have to plan ahead. No, I'm a rancher, and that's not fun. You have been building your herd at your best genetics, and you do not want to have to get rid of them. Like some very famous people have gotten rid of their whole herd twice.
No, that's right. So 80 to 90% is removed, you said?
80 to 90% is removed, and that leaves enough litter in the soil to cover it. I have a lot of pictures and videos on my YouTube channel under Real World Ranching by Jaime Elizondo, where you can observe it. Even on the desert and even on the mountains at 7,000 feet up with low rainfall. You see, you need to make your cows consume all of the forage possible without losing body condition, because that's our second priority under total grazing. Body condition. We want our livestock in good body condition throughout the year, because fat in the body is required for the immune systems to function properly, and in the female, for estrogen to be produced because it contains fat. And estrogen is needed to make, for ovulation to cycle, and an egg is needed to make a calf, a lamb, and a kid. Very important, good body condition.
One last question, and I mean, we're just going to scratch the surface here today. I'm really, what I'm hoping to do is create some thirst for the listeners of the Working Cows podcast for more Jaime Elizondo in their life, and they'll go out and track you down through your other various places, and we'll talk about some of the things you've got going on coming up. But the last question on a total grazing program are the economics of high stock density. It's labor is usually what I hear as the limiting factor. I mean, we can figure out water, we can figure out fencing, but labor becomes the limiting factor in a total grazing program where we have to go move multiple times a day, is what I would be assuming you're talking about doing.
Well, in reality, you don't have to move them many times a day. You can get up around a very good improvement with once a day moves. Mm-hmm. And you can do that with the Pensagro fence lifter.
Right.
The ranch in Tallahassee that I was talking to you about, we have like 400 females, cows. And they have been doing one move a day only. And we're getting around 80% harvest efficiency with good body condition in our cows. That's very important at a very low cost. So once a day is better than once every 2 days, and once a day is better than twice a day. If you're going to do twice a day, better do the 4 times a day, which is the optimum. And if not, because that's where you get the better body condition. But if not, use adapted genetics and move them once a day. And if not possible, like in the mountains in Chihuahua, this guy that I was talking about, this friend Eliseo, he moves them every 2 to 4 weeks. And he gets a total graze in the dry season, of course, that nothing grows over there. And his land is improving very fast. And he doubled the stocking rate.
Wow. Yep.
But if you want to go beyond that, then it's best to do once a day moves. But he didn't. He said, no, I better lease another ranch in the desert and keep doing what I'm doing. So it's up to you.
Yeah. Well, right. Yeah. And I've got a good friend, Derek Schwannebeck, that talks about, he'll always say that's real profit. Whenever usually it's a picture of a family somewhere out in a picturesque scene, on their horses or whatever, it says that's real profit. And so again, back to real wealth, we want to define it, and like you said, it's up to you. So you've got to be comfortable with it. You've got to enjoy it, and then if you enjoy it, you can put the gas pedal down and really crank up the stock density and some of those things, and it can really make a big difference. I'm a believer. I hear it from so many different people in different environments that it works well, and so I'm excited about it, and I think it does work. We've just got to figure out the practical side of making it work. So,
yeah, as the main difference between different grazing programs is, do they have a high harvest efficiency or do they have a low harvest efficiency? That's it.
Right.
Names, there are many, many.
Yeah.
If they have a high harvest efficiency, that means they will give long rest periods, even at very high stocking rates, required for profitability, because that's the main determinant. So if they do selective grazing, they will incur in overgrazing if they want to increase their stocking rate. And that's the main profit determinant. And we talked about that at first. We need to make a profit for our families. That's so important. It's in the Bible. Okay?
Yep. I'm with you. Let's move on. Again, not because we're out of things to talk about with total grazing, but let's move on to the adapted genetics. This is one that I could get hung up on, and I really enjoy this part of the conversation. But can you talk to me about what you mean by adapted genetics, and let's dive in there.
Yes, there is a heat and cold adaptation. There is nutritional adaptation, where some animals in your herd can maintain their good body condition and productivity while the others lose body condition and productivity. And then there is a resistance to disease and parasites. To improve that in our livestock, be it cows, sheep, or goats, it's wise to try to create a composite with other breeds that are very high in these traits. Adaptation to cold or hot, high heat index, which many times is humidity that kills, not the heat, but by the humidity, like in Arkansas last week or 2 weeks.
Right.
Okay. I've known this for a long time because I come from the most humid place in the world, Tampico, Mexico. No, really. If you Google it up, it has the most humid days at the highest relative humidity in the world as a city. So we cannot have a Holstein or an Angus cow there, or they will die in 2 weeks because of pyroplasmosis and the high heat index. So if you need, there are native breeds that are very good for beef production. Like if you need that for the cold, there is a Aberdeen Angus, the originals from Scotland. There are only like 6 or 12 breeders left, but they are marvelous cattle for those environments. Okay, I have students in Scotland, and they're doing great under total grazing with that type of animals. Even on 12 months rested paddocks, that's a stockpile. They're getting good results, good gains after stockpiling for 12 months. Then depends on where you are. The Mashona also has a very high nutritional adaptation, high parasite and disease resistance, and high heat index adaptation. So depends on what you want to get. If you want to remain a purebred breeder, you can also just use the selection guidelines, which are very different than EPDs, which strive for maximum and end up with larger and larger animals, which are not efficient, because conversion efficiency is determined by relative intake. How many pounds of dry matter they consume per hundredweight, not by residual, what they leave behind as they tested. That's totally wrong. And a ruminant needs to first meet its maintenance requirements. And then with the extra consume, they can put on weight. And that's visually easily to observe the animals that had the overfilled animal package. That's what we are looking for. And we need to look at secondary masculine characteristics and at the weight per inch of hip height of the bull and the cow also. And that will tell us, because you see, relative intake relates to metabolic weight. And metabolic weight is the actual weight given by the frame as an average to the 0.75 potency. So the shorter and heavier the animal, the more or the higher relative intake it will have. If you look at a herd of cows at the same reproductive stage, lactation stage, and age, you will notice, easily pick up out that the fattest or in best body condition cows will be the shortest.
Yep.
And that has to do also with hormone balance. We have two hormones, and it was taught by Jan Bonsma a long time ago. Two main groups of hormones in our cattle: sexual hormones and growth hormones. Growth hormones make the animal grow. And when there are no sexual hormones coming in to balance that, they keep growing in height. And that's a late maturing animal. That will be an unbalanced hormone animal. If you look at the steer, it keeps growing because it has no sexual hormones in bone length. So that's why they become oxen.
Yep.
Do we want oxen as bulls?
No.
And that's what EPDs create. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you. You said that we're looking at secondary masculinity traits, right?
Yes.
And so I want to take a stab at understanding what you're saying. Is that we want more masculine bulls and less masculine females? Is that basically
more feminine females?
Right. Less masculine, more feminine. Right.
Yes. Very important. It's called Sexual Dimorphism.
Yep.
By Jan Bonsma.
Yep.
That's a very good book to read.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything I think by Jan Bonsma is pretty good.
Yeah.
But some of them are hard to get a hold of. But very.
Oh yeah.
Very good. So can you talk to me a little bit about that? The more feminine females, the more masculine males. Tell me about spotting that and seeing that out in the paddock.
You see, women are much better than men for that.
Yeah.
Really, my wife is great for identifying the best bull in a herd.
Wow.
And so I will, when I started training on this, because as Johan Zittman said, we need 10,000 hours of observation to excel in something. It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. So I've been observing all my life, but not correctly. Now I've been doing it for many years, and I feel that I'm good at it. So you need to look at hip to height, length to height ratio, the overfilled animal package. All of that tells you that that animal is adapted, has good conversion efficiency, and has good hormonal balance. Secondary masculine characteristic means that a bull should look like a bull, short and thick neck, darker coloring towards the ends, very strong thighs, narrow hips and wide thighs, not wide hips. That's a mistake.
Right.
Wide hips are a feminine trait. Mm-hmm. And some people have been selecting for wider hips in the bulls. That's a big mistake. That you will create females that look like a bull or a steer.
Right.
A very masculine bull will give you a very feminine daughter, and a very feminine dam will give you a very masculine bull. Mm. We need to look at testicles, but not over the big sizes that people say now, because that's, as Johan said, an antidote to the poison. The poison has been to select for high EPDs. Right. That means an unbalanced hormone animal, because they select for higher and higher daily gains. They get taller and taller animals. And that means that the sexual hormones were not produced early enough. They are late maturing. And we struggle to find the testicles in those champions in the livestock show. So they started to counteract that. They started to select for bigger and bigger testicles. And that's not the answer. You
were saying narrower hips and wider shoulders, I would assume, right?
Thighs. The muscles in the legs of the bull, because you see how nature selects. Imagine you're way back before men came, or in the islands of the Aleutian Islands, near Russia, in Alaska, and you look at the animals, how the bulls fight. They do not run like rams and hit each other. Mm. They push. And to push best, They need to be close to the ground. If you notice them when they fight, they try to be close to the ground. And the one that has the lower center of gravity and stronger neck, shoulders, and thighs in the rear legs will over topple the other one. And if you look at the cattle that's been left alone for the last 100 years, those are the type of animals that you see. Very masculine bulls, short to the ground, very long and very muscular, heavy, not light, very heavy for their size. And the cows are very feminine. That's how God intended it.
Interesting. Very good. So is there a balance here as far as height is concerned? A lot of people talk about the belt buckle cattle of the 50s and getting too short, or baby beef, a lot of those things. So is there a balance here that we want to find? How do we find that balance?
We still want the fastest gaining animals, but we want them to have fat and early maturing sexually, early marbling also, so we can finish them easier at a lower cost. So we select by measuring them in inches of hip height and weighting them. The one that weighs the most per inch of hip height, is the best. That's how we rank them if they pass all the other visual examinations and behavior observations. And then I put them to the cows as yearlings and observe the ones that breed the most cows while maintaining their body condition. Of those, I select 2 or 3, and I allow them to breed as 2 years old. Then at 3 years old, I select the very best one according to those observations. We need to be there twice a day for at least half an hour observing. And then you keep the very best one to breed as a 4-year-old. And then you get rid of him because you must have better animals coming down the line if you're doing your selection correctly. And that's how the Machona herd that is in Florida, the largest in the world now, has improved so much in the last 10 years.
Yeah, very good. So, one of the things that I've heard Johann Zeitzman talk about, and you've talked about here today, is fertility is a function of fleshing ability. That their ability to cycle well is a function of their ability to stay fat, basically. And so, is that a function of just the way that animal is made? Are they different inside, or is it a function of the fact that they eat more and differently than their herd mates?
Both.
Okay.
You see, when we see an animal in good body condition, it's under very high stocking rates, able to calve at 2 and again at 3 in low quality tropical forages like Florida, Bahia grass. We see an animal that has a higher relative intake due to its shorter hip height, but not lighter or less weight, and has a good hormone balance. That means that the male looks very masculine and the female looks very feminine. And it also means that it will be short at the hip height and long in length, because the long bones stop elongating when sexual hormones are first produced at puberty, while the animal keeps growing in length. When I first saw animals selected this way, I thought that they were photoshopped. I saw pictures and I said, no, this cannot be. I've never seen an animal like that. But then you start doing it and you start getting those type of animals. Yeah. And now I have them, even in my own ranch in Mexico. Where I have a dual-purpose graze area that I'm slowly changing to a Machona composite for beef.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Is there anything major that we need to say? Anything more major that we need to say on adapted genetics? Don't worry, I talk professionally.
Yeah, me too.
Anything else?
We need to talk like real ranchers and farmers, right?
Right.
If I was talking in Spanish, I would say a lot of things, but in English, I had to translate in my mind.
Yep.
Not so easy.
You're doing good.
But yes, we need to make money. We need to have time for our family and for ourselves. And we need to enjoy life. And we need to improve our land for our next generations. So that's what I love about ranching. It's my passion every day. I love God's creation, and I love being the best steward I can of it. And I believe in increasing productivity, big time, with low-cost biological methods, mainly using our brains. That's what we are given to use.
Yeah. Yep.
And asking God for guidance. That's another very important thing.
Yeah. James.
Because we make mistakes.
Yep. The book of James says, if you lack wisdom, let all men ask, and he gives to them generously when we ask for wisdom. So
that's so true. In my life, I have witnessed it.
Very good. So Total Grazing Program, adapted genetics, optimum calving season. Let's talk about that.
Optimum calving season, we want our animals to give birth when there is abundance of green grass for colostrum quality, for survival of the young, and to better balance our females' needs when they start giving milk with the forage flow and quality of that our land naturally produces. It needs to be short because that's when we do selective grazing, which goes against the land improving. So it needs to be short and at the best time of the year. For that, in cows, we shouldn't go over 45 days or we're going to start having problems. And in sheep and goats, it's very easy. You can even do it for 20 days, 25 days.
Sure. And so it's a short calving season or a short, birthing season. Is that what you're talking about?
At the best time of the year for the females and the babies.
Yep.
And for you, because nature has deeper pockets than any of us.
Yeah. And it's just not very much fun to pile up dead calves that didn't make it through the snowstorm. So
as Kit Farrow said, there is a distressing low winning weight on a dead calf.
Yeah, zero does not doesn't help your grade. I learned that in freshman algebra when I didn't turn in homework. Zero was more damaging than an F.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
What else? Anything else on optimum calving season? That
most people do the wrong calving season. Most people calve too early, and many still calve year-round. So when you're calving year-round, you need to change gradually. Even with the Total Grazing Program, I advise people to change gradually for their training and their ruminants training. Because, and this gets into nutrition, but it's all interlocked. I like to call my management holistic instead of holistic, because I do not leave anything out. I take everything into account, especially profits, but you can use genetics selection to improve the land. And that's a new game. Okay? Okay.
Yeah.
It's a new game, really. And I use nutrition. That means when you have I got sidetracked. What I wanted to say is that the ruminants have different types of microorganisms in the rumen that they require to reach a balance to be truly efficient at converting the roughage into saleable products. So if we're changing the diet constantly, like switching grasses species in our paddocks, different grass species, or we're moving them once a week, the rumen microorganism require from 5 to 10 days to reach the optimum balance. So when we move them once a week, they can never reach that optimum balance. And we are behind the 8 ball all the time.
Right.
That's why we get much better body condition with daily moves or 4 times a day, which is the very best. You get fat cows, even not doing total grazing. But there are secrets or caveats that you need to learn.
Right. Yep. And then the optimum calving season, I would guess, is also partly about reducing supplementation, reducing or in other places, replacement feeding where we don't have anything around to feed them, so we've got to take the feed to them, whether that's a bale or whatever. But optimum calving season also cuts down on that, right?
In a big way, you save a lot of money, and you can increase your sucking rate 30 to 40% just by doing that.
Huh.
So it's very important. Not 4 to 6 times, but 40%.
Right.
So it's a very low-cost way of improving your profits and your animal fertility. And you will also be able to identify the subfertile females that are in your herd, and you will stop propagating those genes, just like in nature. In nature, real-life fertility is what keeps prey animals surviving when there are predators, diseases, lack of food, famines, and parasites. Reproduction. So fertility is a survival trait. Real-life fertility, and is highly heritable because it's composed of two big things. First one is heritable body condition, and we already talked about that. And the second one is good hormone balance. Those two together are highly heritable. So real life fertility is highly heritable.
And is the hormone balance is the best way to spot hormone balance? Is it early shedding, or is there other things that we can look for hormone balance?
Remember that I said that when an animal starts puberty early, it stops growing in height. So that's the main way to find it out.
Sure.
But you can tell me, yeah, but there is a low lines. Well, yeah, but most low lines are early maturing.
Right.
Like a 99% of them. And that's because of the size, the hip height that allows them to consume more per hundredweight, and because they are genetically early maturing.
Is early shedding something worth looking at?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, that's very important, but that would be like a secondary trait.
Gotcha.
If you need to decide between 10 bull calves at 6 months of age, and you decide on that, if they are equal in all the other things, testicles, hindquarters, masculinity traits. Yeah,
sure.
It signifies. Then there are other things like the swirl on the back of the bull calf. The furthest up the neck it is, the better. That
right.
means a better gland function.
Yep.
When you start selecting at high stocking rates for early sexual maturity, it will start to move up to the neck. It will start in the shoulders and move up.
Nice. And then nutrition. What are we talking about here? This is where you want to go.
Nutrition is so important because it has helped me understand why we shouldn't graze cool season grasses when they are young, because that increases the pH in the rumen and the whole body. And we need 5 things to grow a culture. If you want to make yogurt, you need the food source, that's the milk, you need the right temperature, that's 43 Celsius. You need, because I had a cheese factory and yogurt factory for 17 years. You need the right pH for that microorganisms to thrive. You need humidity for that microorganisms to live. And you need the food source, which for the lactobacillus that makes the yogurt will be the lactose or sugar in the milk. So in our livestock, to have pink eye, to have foot rot, you need all of them. But if you take one of those 5 factors out, they will not be able to propagate and reproduce. So we can change the pH of the body of the animal by grazing correctly. And thank God that it also means grazing later in cool season grasses. And that will produce more dry matter per acre and more humus in the soil because what produces humus in the soil are the microorganisms' bodies fed by the root exudates of the plant. And what produces more root exudates in the plant is a high leaf to stem ratio. And what produces a high leaf to stem ratio in the regrowth is total grazing. So it all ties together.
Yep.
The humus formation, the feeding of the animal, the higher production, the better profits, and the total grazing program. That's why I call it a program.
Right. No, I really appreciate that. So you said 5 things: food source, temperature, right pH, humidity. What was the 5th?
The microorganism.
Microorganism. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so, I mean,
that's why we inoculate the milk with yogurt culture so it will develop.
That's the in our situation. That's the rumen bugs, right?
No. Okay. Pink eye and foot rot are caused by pathogens. Those pathogens require a pH of above 8.
I see.
If you have a pH in the rumen, which makes absorption of nutrients and mineral elements higher, then they cannot reproduce, even if they are in the environment. So that's why we do not have pink eye in warm season grasses. And we have a lot of pink eye and hypomagnesemia or grass staggers, a lack of magnesium in the body of the animal when they are consuming high protein, low fiber forages, young forages. That happens also on young wheatgrass.
Sure. Yeah. And you said grass staggers. I think maybe other places they might call it grass tetany. Would that be?
Yes,
yep.
That's it.
Same idea.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Well, you see, I have clients in England, and that's what they call it.
You're translating from Spanish into American English and UK English. So,
and African English is the worst. I have 27 countries that I talk to.
Wow.
So,
yeah. Very good. No, you're doing a great job. So I really appreciate that. So basically, you're saying that we create animals that are ripe for pathogens when we don't have good nutrition.
When we do not manage our grazing correctly.
Right.
For example, if you have a cool season grass and you allowed your cows to graze selectively, what would they go after? The tops or the bottoms?
The tops.
The tops. Where is the most energy concentrated on? The tops or the bottom?
Tops.
The tops. Where is the most protein concentrated on? The tops or the bottom?
The top.
The tops. So they go for the high energy but much higher protein. Those, for example, white clover can go up to 30% protein in the leaves, and you have to wait until it's fully bloomed to not have those problems. Besides, you know what causes bloat, frothy bloat? Ammonia released in the rumen from the rumen box, deaminizing the protein of the very high protein forages that they are consuming to try to get the energy fraction, which is the carbohydrate molecule that if you attach an NH2 at the end, it becomes an amine group, an amino acid, in a lot of them. So the rumen box or microorganisms denature the amino acid and release to ammonia. Ammonia, being a gas, produces bloat, and if the legume that they are consuming has a substance that inhibits the animal belching that excess ammonia out. It also goes through the rumen walls, which are gas permeable, and enter the bloodstream. And that's why it changes the pH of the whole animal. It goes through the kidneys and the liver, and it gets excreted as urea in the urine. But that costs energy to the animal. So we get a lower rate of gain or performance because of that. And eventually, the liver and kidneys, being the filters of the systems, get plugged up. But the first things you will notice when you do that is that your cows will start to scour. Why do they scour? Because they are not consuming the higher fiber content that is lower to the ground. Why don't they consume it? Because we're doing selective grazing. But I have done total grazing here in Katy, Texas, with unadapted animals like Wagyu, and they wouldn't consume the lower parts because they were heat stressed. So we need adapted genetics to fully harvest all what nature is providing us, our natural resources.
Yeah, it's all connected, like you said.
It's all connected. That's why I call it holistic.
Right, with a W at the start.
Yes, to differentiate between people that say that they are holistic, but they have dogmas and paradigms. We need to get the dogmas and paradigms out.
Yep.
Important.
Yep. I appreciate that.
You need to be practical. That's why I'm telling you about my friend in Chihuahua.
Yeah.
He said, no, I'm going to do it different. Okay, go ahead. It's working. I'm happy.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Yeah, we're always learning. If we're not learning, we've just created a new paradigm, and we're not challenging our own paradigms. So
yeah.
Very good. So you have a master class coming up in July, is that right?
Oh, yes. I would like to invite everyone to my free masterclass in July the 12th at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, and July the 13th at 12 p.m. midday Central Standard Time. And you can join. The name of the masterclass is 3 low-cost steps to increase your productivity big time. And you can enroll at www.rwranching.com/masterclass. I'm going to repeat it. www.rwranching.com/masterclass. I hope to see you all there.
Yeah.
And there will be a Q&A session at the end.
Very, very good. And is it different content both days, or is it the same?
No, it's the same content, but I do it both days because there are some people that have a different time frames or time zones.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And so this will be episode 247 of the Working Cows podcast. WorkingCows.net/247 will be the show notes page for today. You can go there and find links to rwranching.com/masterclass, right? And you can get signed up for that masterclass. And, I would say maybe if you have time, join both, because I bet there's going to be people from different parts of the world on each one, and you'll get an opportunity to hear what different people in different places around the world are dealing with. Would that be a good piece of advice?
I would love it, because we have people from Iceland, Norway, France, let me tell you, South America, Canada, Saskatchewan, in New Zealand, Australia, Africa, Philippines, different environments, but it works in all of them if we tailor it to your specific situation.
Right. Very good. Well, I know we've just scratched the surface here today, and I do have a question for you about hide and gut fermenters that I'd like to do a little bit of bonus content with you for Patreon supporters. But if you, I guess obviously we'll send people to rwranching.com, and they can connect with you there and find your Fat Cows, Fat Wallet podcast and some of those things that you are doing as well. You're still doing the podcast, right?
I do a podcast every week, yes.
Right.
And yes, you can subscribe to my weekly email. And I really love this. I love this talking to you. It's been very nice, very interesting.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate your time today. Very good stuff there. Really appreciate Jim and him taking the time to sit down and talk with me. Did enjoy the bonus content discussion with him as well about hind gut fermenters and what kind of finding the enterprise or the animal that fits your environment. He has a really unique perspective on that. Encourage you to check out patreon.com/workingcows, workingcows.net/support if you want to get access to that bonus content. Very good stuff there. I know said last week that it would be Sam Newell this week. Sam Newell will be up next week. Looking forward to talking to him, sharing that with you for episode 248 of the Working Cows podcast. We'll be talking to him about the just process of managing people and some of the resources that he's found helpful in managing people. So look forward to that conversation coming your way real soon on another episode of the Working Cows podcast.
We invite you to visit workingcows.net to subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, resources from our guests, and the industry leaders who have influenced them. For more ideas on putting your cows to work for you in a more profitable way, tune in next week.